This is my presentation on women in law enforcement. Women have been in law enforcement since before the 19th century. Main jobs early on included working with women and children as matrons, policing public events, clerical duties, and working in the Women's Bureau. Many cities in California had employed women since the 1890s who worked solely with female prisoners. Later, it was established that no young girl could be questioned by male officers, therefore, giving women in policing set specific duties. One of the earliest accounts of a woman in law enforcement, Ella married William Longsby, who held the title of High Sheriff of Wiltshire when he died. With his passing, Ella assumed his title of Sheriff of Wiltshire. She was the only female sheriff in Wiltshire until 1998. During the Revolutionary War, Rose and her family moved across enemy lines into Nova Scotia, where they settled when Rose was 10 years old. She began her own businesses and was known for keeping the peace and implementing curfews. She is still known today as Canada's first female police officer. Marie Owens was hired on with the Chicago PD in 1891 and worked primarily in factories identifying children who were working under the age of 14. She was almost forgotten as the United States' first female officer due to being coined a patrolman's widow when she passed away. However, a former detective by the name of Barrett found her while he was digging into forgotten officers of the Chicago PD. Lola Baldwin was sworn in on April 1st in 1908 at 48 years old. She supervised the department's Women's Protective Division until 1922 and also was the Oregon State's special agent for vice control. Lola retired in 1922, but she remained an advocate for females in the police service. Alice Stebbin Wells did not initially receive a uniform. Rather, she was just given a badge. Many people thought that she had stolen her husband's badge and was using it for free trolley rides, so the LAPD had to make her a special badge that said policewoman. Wells traveled and promoted the value of having women on the police force. Because of her efforts, many other cities and even departments in other countries hired police women to their forces. Josephine Roche's father owned the Rocky Mountain Fuel Company, and when he died, he left part of it to her. The area that was previously owned by her family now holds two housing projects that have been named after Roche. Georgia Ann Robinson was a part of many community organizations in LA where she was spotted by a recruiter for the LAPD and offered a job. In 1928, Robinson was breaking up a fight between two female inmates when she suffered a head injury that led her to be permanently blind. This did not stop her, however. Rather, Robinson took her pension from the LAPD and began to work with leaders from the community to desegregate schools and beaches in LA. She was famously quoted as saying, "I have no regrets. I didn't need my eyes any longer. I had seen all there was to see." Emma Benson was on transportation duty along with two other officers. She was transporting a mental patient to a hospital and was headed back when the vehicle was struck by a trolley car. Her end of watch was March 20th, 1919. The 1960s brought a new wave of acceptance for women in policing. Women were allowed to work on vice squads to assist in bringing down drug dealers and prostitution rings. The second wave feminist movement pushed for more opportunities in the workplace. This, along with the Civil Rights Act of 1964, forced employers to stop discriminating based on sex and allowed for more promotional opportunities. Females who were previously stuck in the Women's Bureau were allowed to become full patrol officers. Even with the Civil Rights Act, women still mainly held clerical jobs or dispatch jobs. Affirmative action pushed further, allowing women in positions that had previously only been held by men. The swell of attention led to the rise of television shows featuring women as officers and detectives. The 1980s saw rise to the first female chief in the United States. Penny Harrington was named chief in January 1985, but her reign would last a mere 17 months. It is said that Harrington climbed the ranks partially by filing sex discrimination cases against the Bureau. Once chief, Harrington changed the face of the department by insisting that the officers spend less time enforcing the law and responding to calls, and more time interacting with the community. She also insisted the Bureau cut down on the use of excessive force in light of the tension between the department and the Black community. After an excessive force claim hit the Portland PD, the people who would not see Harrington as chief found that her husband, Gary Harrington, was involved in a tip-off of a cocaine dealer about an ongoing case. A panel of all men eventually saw the demotion of Harrington. At her demotion, in order to try and cheer her up, Mayor Bud Clark is quoted as saying, "Tits up." According to Beverly Harvard, she overheard a conversation between her husband and his friends saying, "See, look at Beverly. She can never be a police officer." She was so offended that she made a $100 wager with her husband that she could get on at the Atlanta Police Department. And she did. By 1982, she was Atlanta's deputy chief of police, and in 1994, she took the title of chief. As chief, one of Harvard's biggest accomplishments was successfully tackling corruption within the police force. Law enforcement in the United States is an indisputably male-dominated profession, particularly in the Federal Bureau of Investigation. However, research has shown that female officers can have a positive impact on communities and the overall performance of law enforcement department. For example, female officers are less likely to have to face allegations of excessive force and can reduce the use of force among other officers in the department. Duffin, 2019. Statista.com. Men and women are equal in the eyes of the law, but physically, men and women are unique. Women tend to have better night vision, peripheral vision, and visual memory. Women are also able to see color in greater detail than their male counterparts. Also, women tend to have a better sense of smell and are more sensitive to sounds. Generally speaking, men win in the strength category, especially in upper body strength, but women have a lower center of gravity and also greater strength, respectively, in their lower bodies. Men are less sensitive to pain. However, women have a higher threshold to pain due to endorphin responses. Women also have a higher fat content than men, therefore leading to higher stores of energy and ultimately more endurance. Men and women communicate very differently. Women talk more than men, and this leads to better subject control. Females are empathetic and therefore can better understand facial expressions and emotions of other people. Men are better at hiding their feelings and less emotional. Also, men are more effective at physically de-escalating a situation when needed. Having women in law enforcement reaps many benefits for the department. Due to the typical style of women policing, there is less risk of violence, less liability overall, and less risk of excessive force complaints and lawsuits. Today, women are still facing many hardships. There are less overall opportunities for promotional opportunities for women, and less women are applying for these opportunities when they do arise. There is a higher demand for higher ranks, which could therefore affect her home life. Women are expected to raise their children like they don't work and to work like they don't have children. We are essentially making women into good men. The lack of female-based equipment is also an issue. On average, the female hand is one knuckle length shorter than their male counterparts. But women are still issued the same weapons and expected to shoot with the same accuracy as men. Not only are women trying to compete with men, but they are extra aggressive when competing with other women. We should be lifting each other up, not trying to get the legs out from other women so we can get a better opportunity. So how do we fix it? How do we get more women on board for the law enforcement profession? For starters, specializing recruitment tactics and materials to be more women-friendly. We can aim recruiting at service-oriented professions such as nursing, psychology, etc. Other tactics that could be beneficial would be encouraging young girls to chase powerful careers and making parental leave more flexible. Ultimately, more research needs to be done on this topic, but the amount of women in the police force should reflect the population in a perfect world.